Hello, everyone, and welcome to the one and only Fan Show. I'm back, baby. That's right. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Because I want you back. Da, 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 da. Shh.
Yeah.
Ba, da, 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 da. Guess who's back? Back, back again. Really, when I decided to come back, the only song that I could think of was the intro to Hot for Teacher, where they're like, I hope you missed this. We're back. So those are the I'm back songs that I've got for you. I am your host, Richard Tieman, and this is and always will be the award winning fan show episode 481. But it's been a while. All of 2023, we did not have any new content. In fact, I think it's been just about exactly a year since the last new episode, which was a music division special with the lead singer, the frontman of Bowling for Soup, Jarrett Reddick. But even if you look at 2020, there was COVID, 2021, 2022, I was very busy. And so the content that kind of got the fan show to where it was a little bit watered down and kind of put on the back burner. But this is like fan show 3.0 content. And to help bring it back, my man in the other box, he is a great athlete. He is a wonderful friend and just an all-around good dude. He is Malcolm McCoy. Malcolm, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. I was about to say, feel free to keep going. I mean, I love that. No, I'm doing great, man. I'm glad to be here, honored and excited to be a part of the show.
Well, let's go ahead and do a resume rundown with you. Tell the people basically, stuff like born and raised, where you played high school or college ball, and then up until now, obviously, because people like to listen to people that know what they're talking about. I know you know what you're talking about, but for the people that don't know who Father Malk is, I'm not calling you sleazy, dude. Quit changing your Instagram handle. Like, you are Father Malk. I don't know what you keep doing, but your social handle to Instagram is on your lower third. It says Sleazy Malk, but for
Uh,
me, always will be Father Malk. So yeah, give us a resume rundown, my man.
for sure, man, for sure. So, born and raised in Maryland. Actually, born in DC, raised in Maryland. Little for those of you who are familiar with the Maryland area, Upper Marlboro, PG County. Grew up there, started playing football fairly early, around 7 years old. Didn't really get into it seriously until I started, reaching middle school, and I realized that I'm actually good at it. So went on to go to Frederick Douglass High School in Upper Marlboro, of course. Got some garnered some pretty good attention. Ended up getting a scholarship to play in my hometown, luckily enough, in Bowie State University. Didn't quite have the career that I wanted there, but still made some great connections, played some good ball, met some great people. Ended up going to Omaha, Nebraska, where I played for the Beef my rookie year in 2021. As you can see, the ring is still here. Yes, sir.
We got
There
the
we go.
rings.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This thing goes everywhere I go. But yeah, man, I had a great time out there. Went on from there to play for the Duke City Gladiators in the IFL. Again, great time, great experience, great people. From there, went to play with the Albany Empire in the NAL. Um, that didn't go exactly how I expected it for a number of reasons that I won't talk about now. But
Oh boy.
from there, in the same season, went to play with the West Texas Warbirds. And season ended not quite the way I wanted it to. We didn't end up making the playoffs, but again, it's always a good experience, man. I had fun, met some great people, and again, made some good connections.
He's the kind of guy, folks, just to give you some context to who Malcolm McCoy is. I remember there being that great debate. It seems like there's one every few years, but this one I really remember. Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota. And of course, Jameis had all the off field issues that were going on, and Marcus was a stand up guy, very family orientated. But you had Jameis, who a lot of people believed had more talent than Marcus did. Now, I mean, this was a long time ago. Clearly, they're both in backup roles now. So I guess whoever won that particular race is whoever you think. But I always believed Mariota was better because I'm a person that loves character over
Mhm.
talent any day because I believe you can develop talent. You cannot develop character. And Malcolm, I mean, he has got character like you wouldn't believe. He is a leader on the field, on the defense. And I know it took him about all season to finally get his first INT, but it was top 10 plays worthy, so it was clearly worth it. But
Yeah.
yes, he is my championship ring brother. We were there. We did that, man. He's got the credentials. He's got the resume. If you had any questions as to who this guy is, that is this guy. And man, I got to tell you, I don't think there will be a season that really can compare to that 2021 beef team. Best beef team there's ever
Man,
been. Yeah, I will
hey,
say it right now because you had to be there. You had to be there to
had to be there.
understand what that season was like, man.
You're 100% right, Rich. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. So just coming into it, initially, I had before then I had never been in the Midwest, never been past Ohio, really. So coming out the Omaha, I'm thinking, this is going to be a huge farm, just cows everywhere, just nothing to do. I was pleasantly surprised, honestly. I mean, it was really cool. The city itself is great. They welcome me with open arms. Huge family environment over there, and just the team, man. It was something special. Like you said, you just had to be there. It's hard to even put it in a word. So like from the first practice all the way up until that last championship game, man, we were inseparable. So it was magical, man, honestly.
It really was. Magical is a good term to it. I mean, this was the team that was written off probably week 3, and by week
Yeah.
5, there were people saying, just overhaul the whole thing and build it for next year. And, and that team
Hmm.
went on to win a championship on the road against a team that was so heavily favored. It was ridiculous. So you really had to be
Yeah.
there. But man, nobody I would have rather been on the call with or in the media trenches with than you guys. It was fantastic experience. So for those of you new to the show, I'm talking specifically to our audience in Georgia because we are now coming to you on Express Radio Station, thanks to my good friend Ron. Reggae Ron, who was a long time, still is, Iowa Barnstormers fan, but obviously he's not in Iowa anymore to go to those games. So he wanted to have a sports show on his platform. He's finally got one. But for those of you that may not be in tune with live365.com, you can still see us on youtube.com on the Fan Show channel, and you can hear us on all your favorite podcast platforms. It's iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and of course SoundCloud. So we're available whatever your poison is. And hopefully you enjoy the show because we are football and nonsense. That's what the F.A.N. stands for. We talk about everything, but really our emphasis is football and our specialty happens to be indoor football. And so, Father Malk, today's episode, we've got a few places that we can start. New segment called The Good, Bad, and the Funny.
Yeah.
And then we've got Free Agency Frenzy. And then IFL Week 1 recap. Where do you want to start?
Well, I feel like it's just it's only right to start with the IFL, man. I mean, you've been that's pretty much your area of expertise. It's where I began. It just seems fitting. So yeah, let's take off from there.
All right, so week 1 of the IFL saw 2 games. I mean, there's
Right.
16 teams, but really that first week tends to be like only a handful of games. Why I'll never know. This has been the format for the Indoor Football League for many, many seasons. I
Hmm.
understand the NFL having its big, debut, welcome back, season premiere, what have you, kickoff Thursday night, and then you have the rest of the games that weekend. So you can have like a little bit of gap there. But I still
Right.
think that if you can have just about all the teams play week 1, you really should. Tucson doesn't get their first game of the season until week 3, and we can
Right.
talk about week 2 and do some pick 'em. But yeah, so you had the Arizona Rattlers who come from
Hmm.
AFL. longtime AFL team there, Coach Kevin Guy, taking on their little brother, Northern Arizona Wranglers. And then
Mhm.
on Sunday, St. Patrick's Day, you had the Massachusetts Pirates taking on the Green Bay Blizzard. Green Bay, really a staple of the indoor football league. So as far as the final scores go, we had 44-40 for the Massachusetts Pirates and the Green Bay Blizzard, and we'll talk about that one in just a second. But as far as the first one, the kickoff, the official kickoff to the season, we had the Arizona Rattlers 51, Northern Arizona Wranglers 40. Now it's hard to gauge teams week one. It just is. Malcolm,
Yeah.
you guys don't get a full-fledged like month-long training camp. You don't get preseason games. It's like you get a
Mhm.
week or two and then you're in it trial by fire. So I want to say that the Wranglers looked like their defense was really bringing it and making it a problem for Dalton Sneed, who was last year's championship MVP with the Bay Area Panthers. But
Mhm.
it's all about rhythm. It's all about finding your sync. And of course, on the offense, building that chemistry with quarterback and receivers. Javal Miles had a little bit of issue as far as just like hauling it in, but that could be because he's with, Dalton Sneed, new quarterback. Your takeaway from week one and just kind of like what's an overreaction and what's kind of a regular expected reaction?
Well, I would certainly agree with you when you say that it's hard to get a beat on a team just from week one. In a way, they're probably still in camp mode. They haven't seen any real bump against an opponent just yet, so they're still trying to gel, especially the offensive side, just kind of trying to get their feet under them and see how they react when they're actually faced against real adversity and not just a scout team. It's also evident because I think both teams, both the Wranglers and Rattlers, at one point they set their starting quarterbacks and brought in the second guy. It's I think they're still both teams are actually still trying to get a feel for who's their guy, and at several positions. So that's a part of learning your team and just kind of understanding who fits where and who works best with who. But they say, I mean, offense, the indoor game especially is centered around the offense. So I think a high-powered offense will always kind of trump even like a good defense. So that was kind of to be expected on my end at least.
Excellent breakdown. Now, it's been a few years since I've followed a league this closely. It wasn't the NFL, and so I'm going to be a little rusty here. If I get names wrong, I apologize. Okay, like just
Yeah.
bear with me. I didn't have a camp either, so it's gonna be, we're up and rolling here. But yeah, Brooks, phenomenal game on the ground. I do find it funny that both teams went with two different quarterbacks during that game. I believe
Yeah.
Northern Arizona's was because of injury. I can't recall. I don't
Okay.
remember the announcers talking about it. But yeah, Kevin Guy, man, it's hilarious. Like he will just switch a quarterback just whenever. He had one of the biggest signings several years ago with Powell, and he ended
Yeah.
up, I think,
Yeah.
switching him around one time, and they had won a championship with Cody Sokol, and then he came back, and it's just like you're right. They're trying to find their guy, and it was kind of comical to me to watch Dalton Sneed, last year's championship MVP with Bay
Hmm.
Area, play a half, and then the other guy apparently needed reps. So it's
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what works for Kevin Guy, I guess. But
It's just that kind of game. Like I said, it's centered around the offense. So, is there points that most games in the indoor football league are very high scoring, and just watching, the Rattlers and Wranglers play, you see why. Just explosive players on both sides, and it's very fast paced. So I mean, it's super fun to watch. I love it.
So that brings us to Sunday's game. The Massachusetts Pirates, former Indoor Football League champion. I think they were the last team to win when it was called the United Bowl before it switched over to the National Championship. But
Yep.
Green Bay, man, you love them. They're in Titletown there, but they're always going to be the Packers' little brother. And they haven't won a week one game since 2017, and they were
Really.
so close to doing it. They led pretty much this entire game even by 12 at the fourth quarter. And I remember I was in a game chat and I said, if they score here, I think it's done because they took forever. Massachusetts did to score on the drive that brought them within what they needed to. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
but if they score here, I think it's done because their defense was really good. And I haven't seen a Green Bay defense that good in a while. But
For
this is
sure.
one of those games where you have to get points every chance you get. It was clearly that although they trailed, I felt if you look back at this game, the Pirates played 4 quarters. They played 60 minutes of football. Green
Mm-hmm.
Bay, and this has been kind of an unfortunate trend for them over the last few seasons, is their ability to finish games. They played 3 and 7/8 of a game. They played, 58 minutes of
Yeah,
football. And you know how that is, man. That's tough.
man. Very much so. Very much so. It sounds almost cliche, man. I mean, you hear it from little league all the way up until the pros, but you have to play the 60 minutes, like you said. I mean, I had a coach in high school who used to say, prepare to play five quarters, because you never know, man. You just have to have that mental determination and just the wherewithal to stay with it because the other team is not going to let up. You can't really count on them being tired or fatigued, and you guys capitalizing off of that. They train just as hard as you do. They watch film just like you do. So you have to be a four-quarter team in order to actually come out on top and prevail in the long run.
So both teams, the Pirates and the Rattlers come out 1-0, which I think is what everybody probably expected in week
Hmm.
1. But man, if you're a Green Bay Blizzard fan, I think you look at this season, you're like, I think we're gonna, raise a few eyebrows, upset some people, maybe
Yeah,
ruin some
yeah.
postseason hopes if they're not in the postseason themselves, which is very likely. I love Corey Roberson to death. I think, what he is able to do with Green Bay. It's tough since the expansion over the years to get players to come to Green Bay, as crazy as it sounds. But
Yeah.
when you have, everybody's kind of getting the same pay. And so basically, your next thing when you're a player is you're looking at, well, where do I want to play if I'm going to get paid
Hmm.
this much? There's San Diego, there's the Bay Area, there's Vegas now, even Jacksonville. This will be their first year in the IFL. So there's all these
Right.
destination places. As a player, though, I'll ask you straight from the horse's mouth, like when it came to looking for your right fit, what was kind of your priority checklist and where you were playing and who you were playing for kind of, what were the tiebreakers and what was your decision making process like?
Well, I would say it's the women written. No, I'm playing. Uh, just just to backtrack a little bit before, because that's a that's a great question. I want to answer it in a twofold way. But before we touch on that, um, I want to just kind of touch on what you said about Corey Roberson. I was in contact with him for a good little while, not too long ago, and I was looking at Green Bay as a potential landing spot for me at one point. That guy has a serious eye for talent, man. And I respect that. I'm not sure what exactly he says to his players or potential prospects, but he's over the years he's found guys who have made that team very exciting to watch. One of which, my guy Jerome Johnson, he actually played at Bowie State. I think I left before, like the year before he came in, and did some great things up there. Played quarterback for Green Bay. He kind of was struggling to get his feet under him in the indoor game, but I want to say about mid-season he hit his stride and was doing really good. Um, but nah, like I said, that guy, he's a good guy. I mean, great guy to talk to, and I certainly wish him the best. But when it comes to my decision making process, it's a number of things really. One, you want to, and this is, I feel like I can speak for a good amount of guys when talking about this because I've had these conversations before, and for it's kind of universal. But one, you want to look at the where the team is currently, because of course, you want to go out and playing professional football for a lot of people is a dream, but at the same time, you want to be a contender to possibly, you know, go somewhere in the postseason and potentially win a ring and stuff like that. Don't, playing for fun, it stops being a playing for fun type of thing. I think once you leave high school, you're looking to get some accolades, you're looking to get some jewelry, So that's one. Two, a lot of coaches they have like a pretty extensive conversation with the potential player before they actually send out the contract. And as a player, you have to see how you gel with that coach. A lot of coaching styles are different. A lot of communication styles are different. And for me, filling out how that coach communicates with me, and just I also asked some questions about the defense and just like certain things and how the team like operates in certain ways. That's all very important to me. I would say the location itself is probably like number three on the priority list because I mean, who wouldn't want to be in California, San Diego, or Jacksonville and stuff like that? Great places to be, but it sucks the fun out of it really quick if you're down there and just losing. So you know, yeah, you definitely want to be in a place where you're comfortable. But I think the percentage or likelihood of you winning it trumps that tremendously.
I also think, based on my experience and interaction with players, I think it depends on kind of where you are in your career, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
if you're a young player, you went to a small school or you got hurt, at the worst possible time, right before combine and draft time, which I knew a lot of players that
yeah,
had happened. You're looking for a place that you can play full time and get a lot of film. If you're an older player though, a vet, if you're a
yeah,
lifer, which there are, there's nothing wrong with that. They love the game, they love the people, the fans. You're looking for hardware. So that can be a huge difference maker. And I think you're right. Corey has really attracted a lot of talent. Rod Miller, who's from Bismarck, he's with Mass now. He can attract a lot of talent too. He did some wonders with Bismarck while they were around. I think Green Bay has their quarterback. He
hmm,
was doing great all game. I think that interception at the end of it really can't be on him. There was a lot of pressure, and he threw off his back foot instead of stepping into the throw. So I think he could have hit his receiver in the back of the end zone. But man, when that pass rush comes at you in the indoor game, it's tough. So I don't fault him for that throw. It's basically you throw it or you lose because time expires. I don't know if
yeah,
they would have gotten another play after that. McCorker for the Northern Arizona Wranglers. Dude, he is a stud. 2 kick returns for touchdowns. That guy can, I mean, find the gaps and he can twist and turn and spin his way into the end zone. He had a reception touchdown as well. So as far as their special teams go for Northern Arizona and even their offense, they're in good hands as well. So that was week number 1. Me and Father Malk's takeaways. Everybody's got reason to hold their head up high. Obviously, 1-0 is looks a lot better than 0-1, but it's still so early in the season. So Malcolm, let's go ahead, look at week 2 and do some picks here. We start off Friday the 22nd. Sioux Falls Storm will travel to
hmm,
Milan, Illinois to take on the Quad City Steamwheelers. Andre
uh,
Fields taking over in Sioux Falls for the longtime Curtis Riggs, who everybody knows my feelings about Riggs, but I have no ill will against Andre Fields. I hope he has a great season. I really do. But Claude Davis is back with the Storm, so their defense
hmm,
already is going to have great leadership. It's going to be pretty ferocious front guys. But man, Quad City, it's their offense. They've got the playmakers: Harrington, Kevin Rudd, EJ Hilliard. Um, their defense, though, it's always the big question mark. What is Coach Ross going to do with that defense? So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Quad City and the Steamwheelers in
yeah,
week 1. I think this is their moment to kind of, start off 1-0. It'll be a
hmm.
tight game, I think. But if anybody could pull off a week 1 road upset, their first outing, I do think it's Andre Fields. Malcolm, your thoughts on that game?
I agree. I agree with you. I feel like Quad City will come out on top. Like you said, Sioux Falls does have pretty experienced defense with Claude Davis and a few of the guys over there. More so than gameplay itself, I feel like Claude Davis will bring he's the type of guy who, and I played against him when I was with Omaha too, so I can speak from experience. But he's the type of guy that brings out the best in other players, and I think that's what they can appreciate the most.
He really does.
Um, definitely, like I said, definitely an experienced guy. He can teach guys like pass rush techniques and things like that. And just he has a fire about him that's gonna bring out the best in other guys, like I said. But as I said before, um, it takes it's not a no easy task to stop any offense in the IFL, especially when they have the talent that Quad City does. So, you know, I would love to see my guys in Sioux Falls take it home, but I mean, just my heart is telling me otherwise. I think Quad City will take it.
Yep, Quad City. They've been that team that just won't go away.
Yeah.
They're in it every game. They're in it every season in the
Mhm.
postseason. They're really there's a hump they're trying to get over. I don't know
Yeah.
what that hump is. If it's mentally, if it's roster, if it's health or whatever. But there's a hump they've got to get over. I think that they're going to start getting over that hump with Week 1 win over the Sioux Falls Storm. So that brings us
For
to
sure.
the other game on Friday, Tulsa, the Oilers, Coach Jones taking on the
Right.
Frisco Fighters in
Uh,
Texas. Now, fun fact, my buddy Adam pointed this out that the last 2 seasons, the team that has finished, I think, dead last in the league has won the
yep.
championship that next year. Northern
Uh,
Arizona, Bay Area. Guess who finished last year?
it was Sosa. Definitely
Tulsa,
Sosa.
man. So
Definitely
Coach
Sosa. I kept a
Jones
close eye on him.
Coach
Man.
Jones, Montero, DeBow. I mean, you know the guys. It's a lot of former 2021 beef players.
Yeah.
What the hell? I'm going to go with the Oilers in this one. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, man. I see, yeah, yeah, gambling, man. I love it. I love it, man. I would love to see it too, man. Like you said, a bunch of those guys from my rookie season in Omaha are over there in Tulsa. You know, Jones took a lot of them with him. I got mad respect for Jones and a lot of love for him. Montero, I always mess around with him. I told him back in Omaha, he's one of the shortest receivers I've ever seen. You know, I used to call him and what's the guy, Tukey, the Mexican wrestler food. You know,
Tukey,
but
yeah, Tukey.
yeah, man, those my guys, man. But nah, tough as nails, man. Taro, he plays way bigger than his actual size. You know, on the defensive side, they got that linebacker coming back. I forget his name, man. Jones. He was doing really good. I think he led the IFL in tackles last year, if I'm not mistaken. They also got Hall. I mean Hawk, the cornerback coming back. You know, always been a a see ball, get ball type of guy. Really, really ball hawk type of dude. Man, I would love to see them win, man. But like you said, Frisco, they're tough on the beat, man. They're tough on the beat, and I'm hopeful for sure. But like I said before, I'm a realist, man. So I can't comfortably say that although I would love to, man. I think Frisco's gonna take it home. They're a tough team to beat.
Frisco, they have a hump they got to get over too, and that's the postseason. They're phenomenal in the regular
Yeah,
season, and then it's like something
yeah,
happens in the postseason. So that's been a bit of a talking point around the league as well. Is this game could set the tone very early for both teams. So
yeah, for
that one will
sure.
be a good one to watch. Then Saturday, we've got the Iowa Barnstormers, and they are
Hmm.
going into Green Bay. I think that I love both teams. I really do. Both fan bases are
Yeah,
fantastic. Been to both for games, great environments. I think Green Bay, if they can play all 4 quarters, which is a big if, I think they will get this win. I think they'll, get back what they lost last week. They'll be 1-1. And then Iowa, I don't know, man. Last year there was a lot of question marks about Iowa, and so I just want to see one thing from them. Even week 1, it might be a tall, or I just want to see some consistency. I want to see some rhythm. I
yeah.
want to see some chemistry. That's what I felt was missing last year with them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I definitely stayed up with them towards the end of their season. One of my guys from West Texas, dude Richie Anderson, he's actually in Omaha now, coincidentally, but he was one of a bunch of late signings. They had to kind of scramble for a playoff position. It's hard to build chemistry that way. When you really can't find a guy, and you're just bringing in more guys to try to fill voids and whatnot. I certainly hope they have it together at this point. But I do agree with you as far as Green Bay. I feel like right now they have like a bitter taste in their mouth, and they're looking to beat up on somebody right now. And like you said, I mean they're a great team. You mentioned the quarterback Max Mailer earlier. Great rushing quarterback. I feel like if he had a bit more, if he was a little more comfortable in the pocket, he could be a significant dual threat. But they had the pieces are there, like you said. Just playing all 4 quarters is will be pivotal for them this week. But I certainly feel like they'll take it home.
All right, so we agree on that one, and then we've got kind of a old rivalry renewed. They were together in the NAL for a short period of time. It's the Jacksonville Sharks, their IFL
Mhm.
debut against the Massachusetts Pirates, coming off their Week 1 win on the road in Green Bay. This is going to be a true sort of litmus test for the Sharks.
Yeah,
Was the NAL really their league as far as they were destined to go to a place of better talent? A lot of people feel that, the NAL was just not where they belonged. They'll get a chance to square off with the Rattlers now, another former AFL team. I do like Jacksonville in this. I think that you don't want to, even on the road, have your debut be a flop. And with
yeah.
the trouble that Green Bay gave Massachusetts last week, this could be a prime opportunity for, even coming off a victory, for Jacksonville to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, I took a look, I glanced over Jacksonville's roster at one point, and they have a lot of guys who I'm thoroughly impressed with. They're pretty stacked in a lot of places, and I feel like they're pretty much riding on that success they had in the NAL. A lot of people are questioning whether or not that was, like you said, just a they're questioning the credibility of the their championship. So they have a chip on their shoulder, even having won a championship just recently. So I feel like they'll come in with a point to prove and prove it, successfully. So I'm with you on that one as well.
All right, and then we have a Sunday game. We've got the Vegas Nighthawks playing their first game of the season on the road in Arizona against the Rattlers. Tough to go against the
Yeah,
Rattlers at home.
for
And
sure.
if anybody knows how to make quick adjustments week to week, it's Kevin Guy and the Rattlers. There's just really not a whole lot to know about the Vegas Nighthawks right now, just because it seems like, you know, they are where the championships are played, but beyond that, it's like, they have their hot streaks and then they have their cold streaks. And I don't know what it
Right.
is that this team needs to do to find its identity, but I think that's been the biggest thing lacking for the team, since they were brought into the league as an expansion team.
Vegas is one of those teams too that has hidden gems here and there. Some notable signings this offseason. They brought in a guy I played with in Duke City, Roger Chapman, cornerback. Uh, some of the best ball skills I've seen. I feel like he's gonna make some big plays and be a big part of that their push this season altogether. Also, Bryant Nolan. He's about 6'5", 330, big body, but super athletic, man. I played with him in Omaha. I mean, I'm sorry, in Albany. And definitely a big body. He's fairly new to the game, but picked it up and is just a beast altogether. So I feel like they'll show some streaks of what they have in store for the season, but ultimately, I feel like the Rattlers are just overpowering, man. They got too much firepower right now, and they're clicking on all cylinders. And with having had their tune up game already this past weekend, I feel like they'll come in guns blazing and just be too much for
Well, that we agree on as well, and that brings us to our week 2 finale Monday night. It is the San Diego Strike Force taking on the Duke City Gladiators. Now, this is an interesting matchup because, like, do
them.
we want to call this the Nate Davis revenge game? because him
Hey,
and Dello Davis with the strike force and
yeah,
McKembe Kearney. I think San Diego's got it, but Duke City, they still know how to bring in the talent. They are a championship caliber team. They won championships in the CIF, and they've had postseason runs in the IFL. So I don't know. This one may not go the way that you think, but I'm still leaning
yeah.
San Diego.
Again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Um, this is going to be a pretty bittersweet one for me, whatever way it goes, because like I said, man, I have big love for Duke City. Great guys down there, coaching staff, one of a kind. My boy Jason Serta plays middle linebacker for or that Mike position for Duke City. Held it down for years, man. Battled some adversity, torn Achilles, or I think back-to-back years. But he plays a game like no other. You'll see what I mean when you watch. He's one of the greatest linebackers to play the indoor game, and that's without question. But on the other hand, like you said, you got Nate Davis. Not only him, Dello Davis, and a few more names. You got Dexter Reese over there playing safety. You got Byron Cooper on the D line. Sack machine, man. I haven't seen anybody successfully block him by themselves yet, man. He's a pretty undersized guy by like normal standards, but the man can play ball, man. It's crazy. Either way, man, I'm gonna be cheering guys on both sides.
That's good to hear, man. And I think that's a great week 2 slate. We'll have to wait week 3 for a few more teams to get their first taste of the season under their belt. But that's
Mhm.
our week 1 quick recap and then our week 2 picks. So now let's talk free agency. For those of you that don't know, because he mentioned DC earlier, Malcolm is unfortunately a Commanders fan. And let me just say this before
Wow.
you get all whatever. Um,
Uh-huh.
I don't think that they're a playoff caliber team yet, but I do think that
Yeah.
when it comes to this upcoming season, that they've put some pieces in place on that roster to really ruin a lot of teams' postseason future, their hopes, their dreams,
Yeah.
or whatever. I had the hot take that I thought Atlanta was going to win the South. They've got Kirk Cousins, and that there was only going to be one team to come out of the East for the postseason. That was going to be Dallas. But man, free agency in the NFL seems to like want to one up itself every single season, and I've never seen
Yeah.
quite the shuffle like this. You have Fields to Pittsburgh, Wilson
Mm-hmm.
to Pittsburgh, and then you have Cousins to Atlanta. You have Howell to Seattle. I mean, uh,
Crazy.
Kenny Pickett was supposed to be the homegrown hometown kid for Pittsburgh, and he's not
Yeah.
even on the team anymore. He's going to go be an Eagle. You guys in DC get, Bobby Wagner. But
Mm-hmm.
man, like your biggest surprise and your takeaways from what we saw that first week of free agency.
Man, so it's like you said, man. I haven't seen free agency like this in as long as I can remember. I always joke with like avid basketball NBA fans that their free agency is just is it's like playing NBA 2K, because I mean you see trades all the time, and it's ridiculous just how you can follow a player and then you look away for a moment and they're on the next team. But this was a lot like that, I would say. Certainly a surprise and an interesting free agency. Like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins, man. I always get a soft spot for him because he was in Washington, uh, led us to the playoffs. He didn't do much. We got, I think, beat out by the Packers first round. But man, his fire is like no other, man. He brings a passion to the game. I was hurt to see him get injured this past season and down in Minnesota, but super happy to see him get that huge contract, and I hope he, does his thing. Who else? Like you said, Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. That was surprising too. I felt like
It
I
doesn't
knew
make
he
any
wasn't.
sense.
Not at all. Not at all. I knew he wasn't long for in Denver, and because he wasn't the guy that they were paying for. But I was honestly surprised. I thought that was probably his last shot. But to see that he got another opportunity, man, good for him. I don't know how it's gonna go. I'm not thrilled about it, but we'll see. We'll see. As far as running backs go, bringing it back to my side in the NFC East. Everybody, I couldn't tell you how many Giants fans were tore up about Saquon leaving and going to the Eagles of all places. I mean, he's just getting tore up from all ends. I think what was it? Tiki Barber actually came out and tweeted. It was like, what did he say? You're dead to me, or something like that. I was like, man, this is crazy. They're acting like he's a terrorist at this point. Who else? Derrick Henry to the Ravens. That's something that my little brother, as a Ravens fan, was hoping for, and he finally got that. But I didn't want to make this all about my team, but I gotta bring it back in full circle. I would say I was thoroughly surprised to see that Bobby Wagner sign with us. I couldn't be happier. He's one of those guys, like I said before about Claude Davis. You're not expecting like a super tremendous output, but it's more so with the intangibles he brings. You have Frankie Louvu over there, Jamin Davis, younger linebackers who can learn from Bobby Wagner just how just his mentality and his keys, how he watches film, things like that. You just can't teach. So I feel like he's gonna have a great season.
So for me, it was just, I really thought that Wilson had reached the point in his career where he wants to go somewhere to obviously compete or be a starter,
Yeah.
but he
Uh,
wants to be in a market that's going to be like comfortable living now. And Pittsburgh was not a place that I pegged him. I'm like, he's going to go be a New
oh
York
yeah,
Giant. This was before Saquon left, but obviously,
yeah.
it's like he could go be New York and have happy wife, happy life, and big
Mhm.
market, and they really need help at the quarterback position. But oh man, so he's in Pittsburgh. Nothing wrong with Pittsburgh. It's just not a market that I saw Ciara being like, yeah, let's go to Pittsburgh. I don't know how much
Not at
say
all. Not at
she
all.
has in it, but I feel like she has some say in
Yeah.
it. But you look at Florida, and all those teams pretty much are good at quarterback. I mean, you could have put them in Tampa maybe, but I think they kind of want to
Um,
see what they can do with a full year of Baker Mayfield behind them. And Jacksonville's got Trevor Lawrence. Miami obviously has Tua, but yeah, that was just not the market I pegged him for. And I feel so bad for Bobby Wagner. Like, I'm glad he's playing and he's getting paid, but I don't think there's a man that wants to be a Seahawk more than he does. And Seattle just,
I,
like, every chance they get to get rid of him, they do.
it's crazy. It's crazy, man. I was thinking the same exact thing, man. Because I thought this past season was gonna be his last one.
Yeah.
Surprisingly had I think and don't quote me on this. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say he had one of the best seasons of his career with like over 180 tackles or something like that. But I thought that was his last lap, his victory run. And he was gonna hang it up after that, retire as Seahawk. But like you said, he came back, but they didn't want him, so we'll gladly take him. I can only hope that I can only hope that he warms up to Washington and he has as much fun as we want him to. So we'll see. We'll see.
For those that don't know, I'm a 49ers fan, and I love all the stuff going around about the 2022 draft class because they keep leaving off Brock Purdy. They're talking about how much of a dumpster fire that quarterback draft class ended up being, and Purdy's name is somehow mysteriously left off of it as like, oh man, look how bad this class was. Like, yeah, except you're forgetting a guy. And that's what I
Yeah.
think is so funny about the situation in Chicago is here you have a team that seems to want to keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. They're almost like Cleveland when it came to trying to find the right guy at quarterback.
Mhm.
They're like doing that because Purdy, you know, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft, comes in and is playing phenomenal. Fields
Mhm.
taken first round. There was a lot of debate. Would he be who San Francisco took? Chicago ended up taking him. Was he going to be number one, number two, whatever? And then obviously Trey Lance is in Dallas as a backup. I think he might even be third string technically, but this year he'll probably get bumped up to backup. But just that they want to get rid of Fields when they see Caleb Williams being like, that's going to be our guy. And it's like, that's not how this works. Like you
Mhm.
just saw that there's an entire quarterback class that has not performed well. And these were guys that were considered like, yeah, these are going to be sleeper picks. These guys are really good. And then they weren't. And that was guys that didn't have a whole lot of hype. Fields had hype, just like
Yeah.
Caleb Williams has a lot of hype. Now, he could very well be that good, but I've just never understood a team saying, this is our guy. They give him 2 or 3 seasons, a couple of different head coaches, and a few different coordinators. And then when there's the next hot name coming up the college ranks, they kick him and they're like, that's actually our guy. And it's like, you got to, don't make sense, Malk. It don't make sense.
Oh, hey, I'm right there with you, man. As a football player, I think this resonates with me on a deeper level because it's not a good feeling to kind of hear the rumors that they're bringing this guy in, or this guy might get drafted or brought in or signed or whatever the case is, and he's at your position, and you're like, okay, so where does that leave me, man? We'll see how it goes.
Yep, free agency just started. We're up and running. Quarterback carousel is spinning. Man, that thing
Mhm.
is a spinning. So I'm very curious. I feel like I can't be surprised anymore, but then I'm going to be surprised with whatever happens next. There's
Oh
a
yeah,
couple
for
of
sure.
dominoes still left to fall. I think Wilson was a big domino, but there's a few still out there left to fall, and we'll see how those pan out. So that's our free agency frenzy recap from the
Mhm.
first weekend of free agency. And for those that don't know, like I said, I'm a Niners fan, Malcolm, a Commanders fan, so wish us both good luck this season. But
Please, read it.
that brings us to the news segment. We'll close it out here with this one: the good, the bad, and the funny. So, the bad, I'll just make it real quick. The bad
Yeah.
was the broadcasts. I mean, these are an issue every year. Green Bay had some audio issues. I think both
Mhm.
had some camera operator issues, but we're 16 seasons into the IFL, 16 seasons, 16 teams, and they've got these markets like San Diego and Jacksonville and Massachusetts, and they still, I don't know, man, they just, I want to see some really good broadcasts. And
Yeah.
Arizona does pretty well, but I mean, that's a given. That's Arizona. So
Mhm.
how they adapt from here, I think we'll see some still pretty good streams, but they just were not what I was hoping for and expecting for week
Yeah.
number one. The good, the good. When I did my live announcement last week, afterwards there were several people that hit me up and reached out to me. One of my friends reached out and said he loved my new approach to this season, which is, you know, here are my terms and conditions, so to speak. Like, I don't want to go where I'm not welcome. I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about this. I'm going to be biased. I'm going to have favorites because try as we might, when we try to be down the middle, it just never seems to work out that way. Somebody always assumes that because you're talking about a team that could be on a 3-game winning streak, that you're suddenly like just gushing over them, and it's not the case. But figure we're just going to go ahead and get that out right now and be like, I do have teams that I like and teams that I blatantly don't like. But one person that messaged me was the GM for the Iowa Barnstormers, Julie Pettit.
Yep.
And
Okay.
what's great about this, what's good about this, is because I said that, there's places that I have no interest in going if I should ever tour again.
Mhm.
Arizona, Sioux Falls, but there are places I'd love to go back to. Green Bay, Quad City, and places I'd like to go to for the first time. Jacksonville, Frisco, Bay Area, Vegas, absolutely. And I said that Iowa was a gray area. And what people need to understand is that when you say that you don't have an interest in going somewhere that you don't feel like you're welcome, it's
Mhm.
not exclusive to I have some sort of personal issue with that franchise or they have some personal issue with me. It could
Right.
be a number of things, especially considering that no 2 years are the same. Just because you were welcome one year does not mean that you'll be welcome. That was one of the first lessons I learned as independent media was
Yeah.
just because things were a certain way one year doesn't mean they're going to be that way the next. I was covering the Spokane Empire, the fan show's inaugural season, 2015, 2016, and I was given access to players and coaches, exclusive interviews, what have you. And the second year, I wasn't even granted credentials. Literally every other team in the IFL approved me to come and see them, but Ryan Eicher, the
Yeah.
GM for the Empire, said no, and it was some bullshit reason. F.A.N was upset because I was sitting in the front row one game, and I know all the season ticket holders, and I asked them, and they said it wasn't from us. We loved having you there. What had
Yeah.
happened was my buddy who was in town, he was Navy, and he was in town. I got him tickets, and he was in the front row. He was on a date, and his date had to leave at halftime. So I went up and I sat with him for like a quarter and a half, like no big deal. The first time I'd ever done that. And apparently that was enough for him to not grant me credentials. But then he, got the hell out of Dodge. Thank God I never had to deal with him again. Terrible GM, whatever. So just because things are one way one year doesn't mean that
Mhm.
they're that way the next year. And on top of that, it is a privilege for us to be approved credentials to go to any event. It's not a right. And a lot of media people think it's a right to be at these places, and it's not. It is a privilege that can be taken away just like that. So when it came to Iowa being a gray area, it meant that I hadn't been to a Barnstormers game since John Pettit, Julie's father, had passed away. That was COVID. And I don't assume that just because John approved me, that Julie would too. This is her team now. And I
Right.
respect that, me and what I do may not fall into their vision for their team and marketing and what have you, because John was a very good businessman. He was a
Yeah.
businessman, though, could come off kind of almost standoffish, but I had the utmost respect for him and he
Mhm.
approved me to go. But for Julie, she could see what I do is not best for business. Any team could. So
Yeah.
she reached out and she said, if you had any doubt that you weren't welcome, you certainly are. Like we would love to have you, the way that you conduct yourself, so on and so forth. And that was very refreshing because, like I said, it's been a few years since I have done this to this extent. A lot's changed. There's some bad blood some places. There's some feelings of, whatever. And I don't want to go where I'm not welcome. And guess what? I'm
Yeah.
welcome in Iowa. So that was
That's
part of the
cool, man.
good for the weekend. And I didn't want to give this person any of my time, but since we do have a little bit of extra time here before the end of the episode, we'll go ahead and do the funny. and,
Yeah.
and
Let's
for
hear it.
context, Malcolm, you're going to love this. When I did the live, I
Uh,
said, this is how the new show format is going to be. And I went on to say, I'm not going to be a podcast that talks trash. There's a podcast for that. And then I mentioned the podcast, the only podcast I mentioned by name. And it was so passive that you had to
yeah.
really be listening to catch it. I said that I had no interest in covering the NAL and the AFL. I was going to wait and see. But I said, I'm not going to be a podcast that talks trash. So if that's what you're into, this is not the place for you. Well, they apparently heard it. Record time, I think, probably, if I was keeping track. Less than 3 hours after I had concluded my live, the page in question, and I'll go ahead and throw this up for the people watching on YouTube, but I'm going to blur out the name, tagged the show and
Yeah.
said the following: Thank you, the Fan Show, for thinking of us. How sweet of you. Where the F have you been, by the way? Probably blowing hipsters in restrooms and drinking $20 shitty beer. Then it says you're attacking every league, and for what? Your original stick failed, so you want to try and be us?
Oh
No.
man.
So, Malcolm, the
Let's
big
give it up
question
for
right now that I have is how did he know that's what I was doing? Because that's
it.
exactly what I was doing. Like
Man,
that is
that's
such a specific scenario. It's like, was he there? Was he one of them?
he
Did
had to
did
be.
I like? Oh, that's. Wow. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I'm flattered at the fact that they think I can afford $20 shitty beer, because if you pay $20 for a beer, it better be good.
Hey, for sure, man. I'll stick with my Miller Lite.
But they obviously
Right.
don't listen, because I'm not trashing or attacking every league. But
Yeah.
man, when I saw that notification, I laughed for about 20 minutes straight. And it's just, it's hilarious, because people want to know where I've been. Okay, so
Uh,
Malcolm, we had your resume rundown. Let's run down my resume. I started
yeah.
this show 2015, and as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, covering the Spokane Empire, which is where I'm from, had access to players and coaches, exclusive coverage. And then when I started doing that, people from teams like Iowa and Green Bay and Quad City, their fans would reach out to me and say, "We wish we had a guy like you. We want a you here, because we don't get that kind of love." So that
Mm-hmm.
started the tour. And so from 2016 to 2019, I would tour each season, as far as I could and as much as my
Yeah.
wallet would let me, because I paid out of my own pocket. But it was all independent. I did everything myself. And then in 2019/2020, I got hired on as a director of
Mm-hmm.
communications for the Sioux Falls Storm. And then COVID ended that season and then ended my job with that team. Then I went to Omaha, where I was a media specialist. And then, because I did that job so well, became the director of media and marketing for the whole league, the Champions Indoor Football League. So the last year and a half, I've been a sports reporter in Montana. So as far as where have I been and do I know what I'm talking about, I'm the only one that hosts his own podcast that's actually
Right.
turned it into legitimate jobs working for actual teams in an actual league. So I think my resume speaks for itself. And
Talk
I'll
that
buy a
talk,
$20
Rich.
shitty beer whatever the hell I want.
Talk that talk, man. Really. No, I mean, and like you said, your resume far precedes you, man. You people know who you are before you even walk into a room, and that's amazing because it's just me watching how you work and how like your creativity and everything that you do for a team and the CIF as a league. I mean, it's amazing, man. It's amazing. I really used to rack my brain thinking of how you come up with these ideas and media strategies and things like that. It's really a gift, man. I mean, like I really hope that you don't take it lightly, because that's something that not all of us can do. Man. It's amazing.
Well, thank you, man. I've certainly worked hard. I don't have 14 people under me working for me. There's not a group of us or whatever. I don't have interns. It's just me. And sometimes my wife,
Yeah,
when she can help, wherever. And I've been very thankful for that. But it's
brother,
just been
man.
me. And people get big mad at just little old me here.
Clearly,
So
clearly.
so that's your good, bad, and funny from week one. And that is how we are going to end things. You can hear the fan show every Wednesday on Express Radio Station live, 365.com, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But for those of you that like your visual people, YouTube channel, all right, Wednesdays as well. And then dropping on all your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. There we go. There's a lot of them, but you'll see the promotional image up there. So Malcolm is going to be one of my semi-regular guys here. If he's back next week, we'll see. I did put an invite out there to another individual, so maybe there's three of us in the boxes this next time. It'll be a fun chat, regardless, and I'm sure there'll be so much more to dive into, and hopefully a lot more funny as well. But we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. Everything is back as far as the content that you've come to know and love. For those of you that don't know, you're in for a nice treat, because this is one of the best places for entertainment and all things football and nonsense. So Malcolm, go ahead. Let's bump rings one more time here. Yeah. Oh, Wonder
Wonder
Twins
twins.
activate. Booyah. All right,
Yes.
man. Well, for Father Malcolm McCoy, I'm Richard Tieman. This has been the Fan Show. We will see you next time.